Well, in my last video, I told you that Judge Netburn, who is the judge residing over the case in the SEC versus Ripple, went missing. Well, she just showed up today, at least to ask for a little bit of time. And what she did was actually rule on 3 separate motions that had been asked of her by the SEC and by Ripple. So we're going to talk about what those rulings were and what that's going to mean for the timeline in this case coming up. And some big news in the cryptocurrency world is that Bitcoin will be having a makeover. In fact, it was just announced that Bitcoin will be having some upgrades to things like privacy, the use of smart contracts, signatures, and a few other things. And it's the first time in about 4 years that such changes will have been made. But I wanted to see if those changes would actually have a big effect on the price of Bitcoin and the rest of the crypto market. So I actually took a look at the last time that Bitcoin had a major overhaul and looked at what happened to the pricing afterward. Well, in this video, I'm going to tell you what I found. And if you've been watching my videos for some time, I referenced several outside attorneys that are following this SEC versus Ripple case. And there's another one that I'd like to introduce to you. His name is Jesse Hines, and recently he actually retweeted his own tweet from December 29th, 2020, in which he laid out a timeline for this SEC versus Ripple case, in which he thinks as of right now it's an extremely accurate prediction. So I'm going to take a look at the timeline of this case with the earliest date that this case could actually be resolved outside of a settlement, and what, if any, implications that's going to have on the price of XRP. Hey everyone, my name is Randy and welcome back to the Late Night Grind. On this channel, I am covering the SEC versus Ripple case along with other big cryptocurrency news and investment markets. So if any of those topics interest you and you're new to the channel, go ahead and click the subscribe button. And also don't forget to hit the bell notification icon so YouTube will notify you when I release a new video. Also, if you're feeling generous, I'd really appreciate it if you go ahead and hit the thumbs up button. Really helps out with the YouTube algorithm and helps YouTube to share this video with other audiences. So if you do that, I greatly appreciate it. Alright guys, well let's jump into it. So we're going to be starting off with the rulings that Judge Netburn just announced today, which were 2 motions by Ripple and 1 motion by the SEC. Now the 2 motions by Ripple were both granted. Now I talked about these motions actually a couple of weeks ago when Ripple first put them through. These were actually motions for them to have the SEC send letters, or in this case the court's actually going to send letters or correspondence to overseas exchanges, and what they're going to be doing is looking for information on who bought XRP and when. Now this is going to be some key information to Ripple's defense. Initially, the SEC had responded to their request and did not want the courts to allow Ripple to go overseas to look for that sales information. But nonetheless, that was passed and that is going to be going through. Now there were 2 motions, both essentially saying the same thing, but they were both approved by Judge Netburn earlier today. Now the other one that the SEC had put through was a request for an extension of 60 days to extend the discovery period in this case an additional 60 days. The judge granted that request. Now I was reading some of what some outside attorneys think about that, and what some think is kind of a win for the SEC, and others said, well, it's not necessarily. It could be more of a procedural thing. In fact, it could be just the judge wanting more time to actually go over some of all the other motions that are still outstanding. So not necessarily a win for the SEC and not necessarily horrible for Ripple. But nonetheless, Judge Netburn now showed up and is showing that she is engaged. And I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt, and she came through. Now, I also wanted to take a look at Bitcoin and its recent overhaul, because this is actually major news for the crypto market, because Bitcoin still drives this crypto market. It's the main driver, even though there's a ton of altcoins and a ton of projects that do extremely well and that are really starting to make a name for themselves. And you can almost, in some cases, see the decoupling of what happens to Bitcoin doesn't always necessarily happen to these altcoins. You can see that decoupling starting to happen. But by and large, Bitcoin is still the driver. So this upgrade, which was recently approved, will actually take place in November of this year. Basically, they're going to be upgrading privacy, which Bitcoin was severely lacking in. They're also upgrading it to smart contract applications. So what this means is that they're directly going to be competing with companies like Ethereum, Solana, Cardano, all the other ones in the smart contract space that were really making a name for themselves. And it also shows that Bitcoin is also able to adopt, albeit at a slower pace. When you're the dinosaur in the space, it's typically hard for you to adopt and keep up with the smaller companies that can change on a dime. But actually Bitcoin doing this shows that they're still willing to keep up, at least for this time period. Now, it seems like they're really slow to adapt to certain things like this, because the last time they got an overhaul was back in 2017 with the Sedgwick upgrade, which had to do with block sizes. Now, in 2017, I wanted to see what happened when they actually went ahead and made those changes to the Bitcoin code. Well, it actually happened in August of 2017. And actually, since that implementation, that was right before the 2017 bull run. Now, I wanted to see if that actually triggered the 2017 bull run. Doesn't look like it did. It was just kind of a continuation until Bitcoin finally went parabolic in 2017. So kind of in my opinion, I don't think that upgrade had a major effect on the price. And from what I've been reading, I don't think that the upgrades that are going to be happening in November are also going to have an effect on the price of Bitcoin. The biggest thing that's going to have a price effect on Bitcoin is whether or not that we're in a major end of year bull run. Now, there could be a lot of other things that go into affecting the price and what the momentum of the market is actually doing, whether it's going skyrocketing or whether it's actually declining into that bear market. But nonetheless, it's going to be something to keep an eye on. And finally, I wanted to take a look at the timeline for this SEC versus Ripple case. Now, Jesse Tynes, who is another outside attorney who's been covering this case, and I got to tell you, these outside attorneys, it is awesome following these guys on Twitter because they really know their stuff. And even though their opinions don't necessarily line up with my opinions in terms of fundamentals and market shifts and momentum and things like that, they obviously know their stuff when it comes to watching what is happening during this case. And they've just been absolutely awesome to follow on Twitter. So Jesse recently retweeted a tweet that he had from December 29th, 2020, which was 9 days after the SEC originally filed suit against Ripple. He put together a timeline which he said, okay, well, so typically there's this many days for discovery, typically there's this many days for this and that and the other thing, plus you need to allow time for possible extensions, which we just saw as happening. And he put together his prediction, and he said September the 5th would essentially be the earliest date that this case would actually go to trial and be resolved, notwithstanding a settlement happening sometime between now and then. But then he also followed that up with that it doesn't look like September 5th might actually happen because of people asking for extensions on things and needing to push things out. Well, guess what? It was just pushed out another 60 days. So he tweeted out that, yeah, it looks like this timeline is actually getting more and more accurate as time goes on. So if you're looking at a time frame for this case to go to trial and be finalized, outside of a settlement that is, you're probably looking at sometime between September and November. And what's that going to do to the price of XRP? Well, a few people that I follow on Twitter said that's really not going to have much of an effect on the price of XRP. XRP is going to do what it's going to do, and Ripple's going to do what Ripple's going to do and continue to build its network outside of this case. However, some people said taking that long could actually be catastrophic, especially if this end of year bull run continues. Now, if that stock to flow model is true and the momentum really does pick up and Bitcoin and the crypto market as a whole go on a massive bull run, if Bitcoin is going up to 100 or 200 or 288,000, which is what Plan B on Twitter, the creator of the stock to flow model for the crypto space, is actually predicting, XRP could miss out on all of that if they are not on exchanges, if they still have the haze of this SEC case over top of them. That could be catastrophic to the price of XRP. Not in terms of it actually losing value, but in terms of it missing out on all the major players wanting to jump into it because it doesn't have the regulatory clarity yet. Now, this is something that Chris Larson actually said back in 2019, before the SEC even brought suit, that they were considering leaving the country and setting up shops in another country just because the regulatory clarity in the United States sucks. Well, now we're continuing to see it. And jumping on this news of the Bitcoin upgrade, especially with the smart contracts coming into play, wanted to ask you guys, go to the community tab on my channel. I have a new poll out, and I wanted to ask you guys what your thoughts are, or you can also leave it in the comment section below. If you had to invest in one crypto over the next 12 months or put the majority of your holdings into a smart contract crypto over the next 12 months, who would it be? Is it going to be Bitcoin with their new smart contracts coming out, Ethereum, Cardano, Solana, or any others? Let me know in the comment section below, but go ahead and hit that community tab poll. I want to know what you guys think. All right, guys, I appreciate you watching all the way to the end, and once again, I always appreciate it when you drop a thumbs up on this video, and I'll see you guys on the next one.